Hello everyone, thank you for watching Edupedia World videos. So in this video, we learn about the SAP Exchange Connector. Okay, so this is nothing but it's an interface. It's used as a connection. It's used for communication between the SAP system and the Microsoft Exchange server. Okay, so the SAP Exchange Connector connects the Microsoft Exchange server to the R3 system. This enables R3 applications and R3 users to send and receive documents to and from an MS Exchange server mailbox. So you have the Exchange server mailbox. So via this SAP Exchange connector, you will connect the SAP system to this MS Exchange server mailbox. Documents can also be sent and received in the R3 system via other connectors that are connected to the MS Exchange server, for example, internet or fax. So to this MS Exchange server mailbox, you can connect using other connectors, internet or fax also. Those servers also can be connected. So from the SAP system, using this SAP Exchange connector, you connect to the MS Exchange server mailbox, and using other connectors like internet or fax, you will connect to those servers also, the internet server or the web server or the fax system. Attachment files, for example, R3 documents, MS Office documents, fax, bitmaps can be transmitted in both directions. The SAP Exchange connector controls message receipt, message conversion, and message transport between the MS Exchange server and SAP Connect, the R3 system's communications interface. So that's what this Exchange server, it controls everything like the message receipt, the message conversion, okay, and the message transport between the MS Exchange server and SAP Connect. SAP Connect is the R3 system's communication interface. Okay, connectors installed on the MS Exchange server gateways can be used from the R3 system as well using the SAP Exchange connector. Okay, so other connectors like the site connector, X.400 connector, the internet mail connector, and third-party fax connectors which are connected to the MS Exchange server can also be used from the R3 system. The SAP Exchange connector exchanges messages with the R3 communications component SAP Connect via SAP remote function calls. Now, using remote function calls, the SAP Connect, it communicates with the SAP Exchange connector. The RFC used here is based on the transport protocol, TCP/IP and the SPIC protocol. So, using these protocols, TCP/IP and SPIC, this RFC connections are established. There are two options for installing the SAP Exchange connector: installation on a separate computer system under MS Windows NT workstation or a server, or installation on an MS Exchange server itself. So you can install this SAP Exchange connector on a separate computer which runs on MS Windows NT workstation or on the MS Exchange server itself. So this is what we are actually talking about. We have the R3 system here, we have the Exchange connector, and we have the Microsoft Exchange server here. So using RFCs, the R3 system communicates with the SAP Exchange connector. Okay, and that using its gateway service, it will connect with the Microsoft Exchange server. So we have the RFC in and the RFC in and the RFC out servers. So this is the elaborated view. You have the SAP system, you have the SAP Exchange connector, you have the Microsoft Exchange server and other connectors. So you have the application, then you have the business workplace. Okay, business workplace is nothing but from there you can send this mail or a fax or whatever it is. So we have the SAP Connect, that's the communication layer which connects with the SAP Exchange connector. So here it's the RFC in, RFC out. It has a gateway through which it communicates with the Exchange server, and that communicates with the other servers like the internet or fax, etc. The SAP Exchange connector is made up of 3 Windows NT system services. These services can be installed either on the Microsoft Exchange server or to distribute the load on a separate Windows NT computer. Okay, so you can install this SAP Exchange connector directly on this Microsoft Exchange server, or you can install it on Microsoft Windows NT server, a different host, just to reduce the load on this Exchange server. So this part can be directly installed on this server or on a other Windows NT server. Messages can be sent externally and received in the R3 system via the fax, internet and X.400 connectors connected to the Microsoft Exchange server. So the other connectors using an internet connector or a fax connector, you can also exchange information from internet, fax, etc. The R3 users receive status notifications such as read or transmission confirmation for messages that they send via the SAP Exchange connector. Okay, so the informations which, the documents or whatever you send out, the SAP system also gets notified regarding whatever documents that are dispatched. These status notifications are output both for the messages sent to the Exchange mailboxes and for the messages sent via the MS Exchange server connectors to internet, fax or whatever it is. So you send it to the Microsoft Exchange server, not only to this, to the other connectors like internet, fax, or so that's whatever information is dispatched, documents are dispatched, okay, to the Exchange server or to the internet or to fax or whatever it is, users receive status notifications. SAP gets the notification whether, see, I have sent this particular mail, or I have sent this fax, or I have sent some information to the MS Exchange server, the Outlook server. So you get back again the notifications whether it is successfully delivered or it's an error or it's waiting or whatever it is. Okay, so later we'll learn about this, sending, how it is sent and the different types of notifications we'll get. So for every transmission, the SAP system gets back a notification. So in brief, like what we have learned is this Exchange connector, it connects the R3, the SAP system, to the Microsoft Exchange server. Okay, and using other connectors installed on this Exchange server, you can connect to internet, fax, etc. those servers also. Now this SAP Exchange connector can be installed directly on the Exchange server or on a different host running on Windows NT machine. Okay, now the other important thing is like SAP Connect is it's a communication interface in the SAP side. So that communicates with the SAP Exchange connector via RFCs, remote function calls. Okay, and these RFCs, they use TCP IP or the SIPIC protocols. Okay, so far this is the actual view, like what is this SAP Exchange connector is about. This helps in nothing but communication. Okay, so the users using the SAP system, they want to send faxes, they want to send a mail or whatever it is. Okay, so this SAP Exchange connector, it helps in communication. Now see, this is an example. So a user using his desktop, okay, he will connect to the R3 system. Okay, so that first gets connected to the Microsoft Exchange server. Okay, and using this Exchange server, the internet, fax or whatever it is, the other connections are made from this Exchange server. Okay, so the information can be sent and received in both directions. Okay, so individually, like here everything it's made like this Exchange server, it'll come to know like whether yes, this is an internet message or this is a fax message. So from the SAP side, all that information will come, whether this is an internet message or this is a fax message or this message is sent to the Exchange server. Okay, so that information, it will come from SAP via the Exchange connector. Then using this Exchange server, it's dispatched accordingly. Okay, now the Microsoft Exchange administration program is used for SAP Exchange connector Configuration of the SAP Exchange Connector operating system services. The following pages are available for this. So this one now, the SAP Exchange Connector, what it needs to have, you should have the Exchange Gateway, the RFC in, RFC out, and a diagnostic log. Here you have the RFC in, RFC out, you have a gateway, and you have a log also. Now the MS Exchange standard settings. The most important are the address space for internet, fax, etc., the delivery limitations, and the general settings like the message size, message parameters. So these are required while when you build and configure the SAP Exchange Connector. Okay, so then you have to configure like the gateway, the RFC in, the RFC out, and you will have a log also. And the other standard settings to be made are the address space, the delivery limitations, and the message size, the message parameters, etc. So all these are nothing but the configuration part of the SAP Exchange Connector. In the MS Exchange Administration Program, check and if necessary change the following settings. The gateway component, okay, so it has a RFC in component, RFC out component, a diagnostics log, address space, general settings, and the MS Exchange Internet. Okay, so this SAP Exchange Connector, it uses an MS Exchange Administration Program. So you have to take care about all these things in that administration program. So while configuring the SAP Exchange Connector, all these settings are to be made. Now make the following settings in the R3 system. Check whether the method SAP Connect is set for the communication method INT. To do this, choose settings, communication methods in the SAP Connect administration, that is the SCOT. Now this SCOT transaction is to be executed on the SAP side. Okay, so this is the initial screen of the SCOT transaction. So you have a system here. Okay, there you configure different nodes like, see, this is the fax, internet, etc. You configure all these are known as nodes here. Once the various communications, the various connectors. Okay, now this our SAP system has to communicate with the SAP Exchange Connector using RFCs. So you have to create an RFC connection, an RFC user, and you have to create the node. Means this is the node. Okay, whatever communication, it's fax or internet or X.400, like that. Now after successful installation and configuration of the SAP Exchange Connector, you have various options for controlling the send process. Now when an SAP system is initially built, you want to do some communication, okay, to fax or internet or the MS Exchange server. So first you create this, install, and you configure the SAP Exchange Connector here. Okay, now the next one is, there you take care about all these things like the gateway component has the RFC in, RFC out, okay, the diagnostics log, the address space, general settings, and the MS Exchange Internet connected. Okay, so on the SAP Exchange Connector end, it uses an MS Exchange Administration Program where you have to take care about all these things. Now in the SAP side, you run the SCOT transaction, and there you have to create individual nodes. Node is nothing but to internet it has to connect, okay, to a fax server it has to connect. So those are the individual nodes which have to be created for each one of them. Okay, and you create the RFC connection and the RFC user for that, because R3 system communicates with the SAP Exchange Connector using RFC calls. Okay, so this is the initial screen of the SCOT transaction, the SAP Connect administration one. See, here it shows like completed, error, in transit, and waiting. So now for fax you have like 2 are completed. Okay, similarly like for the others. Okay, so when you run this initial screen, so this is what you view. Now these are the, now we will go into details like, see, if I double click this internet SMTP, oh, so you have the description here. Then you have to check with, this is very important, node in use. Okay, if you don't select it, that will not be activated. That means like you're not using that node. See, like for facts I have not selected it, so that's not in use. You have configured, that's not in use, so please check this node in use. Okay, and the mail host, so here you'll give the actual IP address of that server. Okay, the port, the code page. And now what are the supported address types like fax, internet, or a pager? So this is for internet, so I select that. Okay, so this configuration has to be made in the SAP side. See, if you go into further details, this internet set is there, so here it will show like what all addresses it will accept. Say you want to block some addresses, okay, so then you can, if I give star, it means like I'm going to accept all the addresses. Okay, or if you want to restrict only to few addresses, then you can give that name here like something xyz.com or abc.com, or you can give them here. Okay, if I give star, it means like everything is accepted. And output formats for the SAP documents are like PDFs, HTML, and text. All those things you give here. So this is how like you will configure the node here. Okay, so if you select that node, you will give the actual, the host name of the server, the port of that server. Okay, and this, you know, this conversion here. Okay, see here we have given some host name, we have given the port. Okay, and we will select the corresponding address type, like if it's an internet node, you will select internet. And again in that set you have to mention like what all addresses it will accept, like that. See this one is used for both internet and fax, the same node. Okay, so that particular server does both functions, like it's used for internet configuration as well as it's the fax server also. So that's how the configuration is made in the Scott transaction. So this is very important. Okay, so this transaction SCOT is used for the SAP Connect administration purpose. So here you configure different nodes, the fax, the internet, etc. Okay, and here it shows the information like how many are completed, how many were in error, like each transmissions, like how many were completed, how many were in error, how many are waiting, and in transit status. Now the important thing is like, say like you're not able to send mails to some internet server or some Outlook server, or you're not able to send some faxes to a particular fax machine, then first thing is like you have to check here whether that configuration is correctly made or not. Okay, sometimes you can, you know, the addresses will be restricted here. Okay, so even that also you have to see. Generally they will give star, means like to any other, you know, internet mail ID the messages can be sent, but if you restrict here, then it will not be sent. So these things, it helps you in troubleshooting. And even this mail host and mail port, okay, see like sometimes they'll change the settings on the exchange server or the internet server or the fax server, whatever it is, then even we have to update them in this Scott transaction. That is important. Sometimes they will make some changes and we will not be able to send messages because whatever changes they are, you know, doing, that's not reflecting in SAP. So first thing you have to check like whether all the corresponding node is there, it's activated, this node in use is selected or not. Then the other details of that server, which are, you know, shown here. Okay, so these things are very important, and this gives an immediate snapshot like how many are completed, how many are in error, how many are in, you know, waiting and in transit. Okay, what we have learned here, first thing we have seen is the SAP Exchange connector. Okay, this is the basic view. So this Exchange connector can be installed on the Microsoft Exchange server or on a different host, okay, which runs on Windows NT server. Now this SAP Exchange connector, it acts as an interface between the SAP system and the Microsoft Exchange server. The SAP Connect is nothing but it's a communication layer in the SAP system itself, which communicates with the SAP Exchange connector. It connects via RFCs, that we have understood. Now this, using its gateway, this SAP Exchange connector communicates with the Exchange server. And using other connectors like internet connector or fax connector, you can connect the Microsoft Exchange server to the internet server or the fax server, etc. Okay, so this Exchange server is initially when the SAP system is built. So even this is also built, this Exchange connector. You have to even install this component also. These things, the Exchange connector, it uses the MS Exchange administration program. Okay, so these things are to be configured initially, like the gateway, the RFC in, the RFC out, a diagnostics log. You have to configure the address space, the general settings, and the Microsoft Exchange internet connector. So these settings are to be made on the SAP Exchange connector. Okay, and that uses the MS Exchange administration program. Now coming to the SAP side, so you have to run the transaction known as SCOT, SCOT, which is the SAP Connect administration transaction. So here you create the different nodes for different types of communications like fax or internet or whatever it is. Okay, after you create the node, in the node you will give all the relevant information. Okay, so here you give the address of that server, you give the port, and you can also restrict like what types of addresses it will accept during its communication. So during daily monitoring, now we run the SCOT transaction, that is the SAP Connect administration transaction. So here we need to monitor the number of entries which are especially in error and waiting status. Completed ones are the good ones, so we need not worry about them. So the SCOT gives an immediate screenshot of how many entries are in error and in waiting and in transit status. Okay, so here we have the different nodes, the fax, the internet, etc. So the purpose of running the SCOT transaction is to monitor the documents which are flowing out from the SAP system. If we have too many in errors or in waiting, then we need to analyze where is the problem. Now say like some changes have been made on the Microsoft Exchange server or on the internet server or on the fax server, because we are giving those details in SCOT. If they have made some changes over there, then we need to update them here also. So sometimes what happens is like during a weekend or during some change, they will do some changes and suddenly you will, and if we are not informed, okay, and if that information is not updated in SCOT, the basis team does not update that information in SCOT, then the flow of these documents will fail. Okay, so that is one thing which we need to bother. And the other one is like maybe because of some network problem also, you can face issues. Okay, so in the next video we'll go into details of this send process. So we'll learn like how the documents are sent out. Okay, so there should be some trigger in the SAP systems. So we should have a program which sends out all these documents from the SAP system. So we'll see that program and where to monitor. Okay, now here we have seen the SCOT transaction, SCOT. So in the next video we'll see about SOST transaction, where we'll administer and monitor the sent documents from the SAP system. So we'll go into details about that in the next video. So as of now, here in the SCOT we will configure each node and we'll maintain the relevant details here. Okay, so this node, as we have discussed, it's configured for internet. This node is configured for both fax and internet. Here the supported address types. Okay, and this host and port are important, and very important is you have to check this node in use. Now, so the SAP Connect administration, the main points are: SAP Connect contains an integrated administration interface which you can use to set up the external communication systems and monitor sending. You can display different views of your communication environment. Yes, so here SAP Connect is nothing but it's an interface of SAP for sending out all these communications, and here we'll set up different nodes, okay, fax, internet, whatever it is, and we can monitor them. So the transaction SCOT is used to call the administration interface of SAP Connect that we have seen. For each external communication system, create an RFC destination and a node, right? So for each of the different communication type, fax or internet or X.400, whatever it is, paging, whatever it is, so we create a node and it should have an RFC destination also. You can add more systems, that is create new nodes even during operation. Yes, so SCOT can be changed during the support phase also. You can add new nodes, you can delete existing nodes, whatever it is. Outgoing messages are first stored in the queue. You have to schedule send process so that the messages are sent from the queue to the external communications system, right? So all the messages are first collected in a queue and you have to schedule a send process. As I have said, we'll learn about the send process in the next video. So that send process, it pushes all these messages out from the SAP system to the respective target. You can distribute incoming messages with inbound distribution using recipient addresses. Okay, and the tools for monitoring and error analysis are available for monitoring sending, and you have various tools also for monitoring and error analysis. Okay, so in SOST transactions, so in the next video, that screen we'll see where you can enable tracing, okay, or you can find out more details about the error or whatever it is. This is the brief overview of SAP Connect administration and transaction, SCOT, SCOT. Now, external sending in the SAP system. So here are the main points which we have to take care, which have to be configured for external sending in the SAP system. The first one is customizing settings. Specify communication types, define rules for recipient number adjustment. So first one is you have to customize your settings. Okay, you have to maintain all these things in SCOT transaction. In SCOT, if we go to settings here, okay, under the settings overview, you'll find this. You can specify the various communication types and you can define the rules for the recipient number adjustment. Okay, so communication types means like what, internet or whatever it is, all those things, fax or paging, whatever it is. Okay, then settings for the connection are, you have to create a RFC user, you have to create the RFC destination and create ICF service. Now every node should have the corresponding RFC user and a destination. Okay, and if SMTP requests are to be communicated, then you have to create the ICF service, this ICF service in SICF transaction code. Only if you want the SMTP for SMTP requests. Okay, for other nodes this is not required. Now the next one is settings in the SAP Connect. Create or change node. You can create or you can change the information in the existing node. You need to maintain the inbound distribution and schedule send process. Okay, so all that configuration we have seen here. Okay, so each node, what all details we have to configure are shown here. Now user settings, maintain addresses, assigns and authorizations. For every user you have to assign some authorizations for sending, for sending mails, like this user can send mails to this particular faxes or to these addresses, whatever it is. And settings in the business workplace, check send restrictions. You can also restrict the users to send only to particular users or particular groups. That is done in the business workplace, that is SBWP transaction code in SAP. Okay, so these are the 5 points, like the customizing the settings. We have to the settings required for the connection to be established, then settings in the SAP Connect. Okay, so these 3 you will do in the SCOT transaction. Then the user settings, okay, and settings in business workplace are related to the authorizations for the users for sending the messages. Okay, so this video shows an overview about SAP Exchange Connector. Okay, so we have started with the Exchange Connector, okay, where it's configured. Okay, it links the R3 system with the Exchange server. Okay, then we have seen the the program, the administration program which the Exchange Connector, SAP Exchange Connector uses. So it's the MS Exchange administration program, and what are the different configurations which are to be done there. Then the important one is the SCOT transaction. This is the SAP Connect. It's nothing but it's inbuilt in SAP. It's the communication interface in SAP, which is used to communicate with the SAP Exchange Connector. Okay, so we have seen like what all configurations, like the different nodes are created in the SCOT transaction, okay, for each communication type. And we have seen like what all details are to be given for each node. Then we have seen some important points in the SCOT transaction, okay. And then finally for external sending, like what all things are to be kept in mind, okay. So these 5 things: customization, then setting up the connection, then the settings in SCOT, okay, then the user settings and the business workplace if required, like what are the settings, the restrictions we can make for the users in this business workplace transaction. Now in the next video we'll learn more about the send process. So it's the transaction SOST, okay, and we'll see like what is the program which is used to send the request and how to monitor, troubleshooting also we'll learn, like if the request failed, then where to find out, okay, then how to analyze it. Those things we'll learn in the next video. Thank you.